What's going on? It's Alex coming back at you with another video, and today we're going to be doing my Arizona Cardinals Deep Dive. This is a series that's consisting of a draft class breakdown, a depth chart breakdown, as well as a records prediction. So, I'm excited. Let's get it on with this. If you are new, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. This is how we roll in the offseason. Yeah, I know these videos don't garner a lot of popularity, a lot of views, but I know that the fans of mine who are team specific really do love this. And hey, if you are new, I'm willing to put in a lot more work for these videos in order to be able to reach a much more niche market because I think that it's awesome. It pretty much it allows me to be able to learn and then, or just at least make sure my facts are straight when I do my other draft content. So super exciting nonetheless. If you guys are fans of any other sports as well, or just, are of age and legally able to, feel free to use all the codes in my description it's going to be a link tree, so it's super easy for you guys to scroll on it. But UnderDog Fantasy, they're a great company. They support me. They do a really good job at making sure that everything's right. And, it's a great way if you even like MMA. They have ways of doing higher and lower on that. And, if sports betting is not legal in your state, sometimes daily fantasy sites are, i.e. Texas. So that's why I'm able to do it here. And it's why I promote them so much, because they don't require me to at all. I just think they're a great company. And every time you guys sign up using my code, which again, go to that link tree and just click on it, and it'll put everything in automatically, sends me $60. Full transparency there. But I love the company regardless. I'd do it if they paid me $10 a user. I mean, don't tell them that, but I mean, that's how much I believe in the company. But looking at the draft class, that's what we're here for, right? We're here to actually talk about football. Start out with the 4th overall pick. He went Marvin Harrison Jr., arguably the best player in the class. I think that he did take off a few reps last year, but I mean, when you have a McDonald's at best manager as your quarterback, I'm not really going to put that too much on him for pretty much not giving his all for McDonald's Employee of the Month. But Kyle McCord, I'll be studying him eventually, so he'll be getting a full-on grade. We'll see if he actually lives up to the McDonald's Employee of the Year motto. But pick number 27, you had 2 first-round picks, ended up getting Darius Robinson, who's going to be listed as an interior defensive lineman for you. The more I think about it, the less I like it, because of the fact that he's right now, according to our lads, and just a quick little heads up, based on the depth charts, I'll explain this one more time, but after this, I'm using that as the baseline. Our lads has more often than not the most accurate projections of the depth chart, and right now, Darius is slated to be inside as a listed defensive end. And for me, his best ability came when he was rushing from that 5-tech spot, or like from the outside, not from somebody who's going to be pretty much having another edge rusher next to him. To me, that was a little bit of a reach, but I really do love Darius Robinson. It's just for that specific role, he was not regarded as such. And then he transitioned to like a full-time edge rusher, and then he ended up being far more consistent. So I'm really hoping that I'm wrong in that, because I love Darius Robinson. I love Missouri players. Y'all know I'm the sucker for Missouri players and Penn State players, is what it is. But I do have my concerns nonetheless. Max Melton was the 43rd pick. I loved it. I mean, Max Melton was a top, I think, 30 player for me on my board. Dude's a stud. And, I didn't know that a lot of teams had him that high, but he is athletic. He's energetic, a little bit on the shorter side, but we'll talk about that when we talk about the defense. I do have a concern in terms of overall size in that secondary, but still a great addition. Then you got Trey Benson at the 66th pick, which I thought was a steal. Great job. Like, honestly, great job. Isaiah Adams at 71 was a bit early for me. Like, I really like Isaiah Adams. I love the Illinois players in general, but it was really early, in my opinion, for Isaiah, who still has a ton of potential, but I saw him more as a developmental guy, like an early day 3 guy. I'm not going to crucify you for that pick. I will, however, crucify you for Tip Ryman. I mean, granted, he didn't have a full official grade, but the last thing I saw when I was watching Illinois' offense was, holy crap, Tip Ryman is a day 2 player. That was just extremely early. Like, you still had Jatavian Sanders and Theo Johnson on the board, right? And you also have a really, really good tight end in Trey McBride. I thought that was a big, big reach. And that's the biggest kick in the balls, because then you got Elijah Jones, who I thought was a very solid corner, but, at 180 pounds at 6'2", I mean, he's a good corner. He's just a stick bug. Like, you really lack that perfect combination of size and overall ability. So I'm hoping that, again, we'll talk about it a little bit more later, but I'm really hoping your corner core can somehow find a way to remain competitive, especially in your division where you have guys of legitimate stature. Then you have DTD, I think it's Dadrian Taylor Demerson, really, really high ceiling safety. I just thought his motor was not great. Just simply put, I really didn't appreciate how often he was jogging on the field. I love when I see safeties really have that extra motor. And that's why of all my positions, I used to have mentality as a grade for all the positions. Most of the time, it's just a filler in like grade, like kind of a buffer, because everybody does pretty well on it. But I ended up eliminating it for every position except safety, because this is where the actual running hard, or at least being active every single play, really does come into account. If Taylor can, or if Demerson can end up really improving that, I think he could be a superstar. Sometimes that's the biggest question mark. But then we got Xavier Thomas at 138. That probably would have been my favorite pick, but I just loved Max Melton a lot. Xavier Thomas to me I think he was in my top 6 edge rushers in the class. So he was above Darius Robinson. Totally different style of player. So you can't really, it's not apples to apples. It's apples to oranges right there. But Xavier Thomas is an extremely high floor dude who has a really, really good motor. And he's very, very athletic. I love him to death. And I think he's going to actually get some actual reps this year. Keep your eyes out on that, because that could have been the steal of the draft there. Christian Jones was pick 162. Someone who I saw some flashes with in Mobile when I was seeing him in person. But the more I watch his actual tape, I do have my concerns. I don't really think he was worth pick 162, but at the same time, that's where I start being a little bit more lenient. Tajon Palmer, pick 191. There was no University of Alabama All-22 tape, so, I didn't have an official grade on him, but I saw some other players on the board like Brendan Rice that, to me, regardless of how good Tajon Palmer was, I would still take my risk on Brendan Rice. And then Jaden Davis, cornerback out of Miami there in the 7th round. Like a little bit underwhelming, but I'm always fine with people throwing darts at the wall, so to speak, when it comes to cornerback. So overall, B-, respectable draft. A lot of good names, but again, there were a lot of reaches in my opinion. The Tip Ryman one, that was the biggest surprise, I think, to anybody. But he's a cool story. During the combine, there was some fun stories there. But let's get right into the overall depth chart analysis here. And starting out with the offense, we go from skill position to line, and then for defense, we go line, skill, position. Feel free to look at the key there to be able to indicate some other cool facts as well. They'll help you, and help me be able to understand some things that I'm not going to necessarily talk about. But Kyler Murray, he's a baller. I love him to death. I have the best unit being left wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr. The only reason I wouldn't put Kyler Murray is because some injury concerns. I mean, who gives a shit, though? I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr. and Kyler Murray, both of them are excellent. So, and Insano and Trey McBride, you have a really good trio right there. Regardless, we'll get to them in a second. Kyler Murray, he was that guy. This was my first ever video that got to 1,000 views. Was during summer of 2020, and it was my Cardinals records prediction. So, who knows? Maybe I'll just get like crazy amount of views on this. I won't, because the Cardinals were much more hyped up back then. So this year, there's some certain teams that I could see that happening. This is not one of them. But regardless, I was thinking Kyler Murray was going to be MVP, and he has that potential. Absolutely. The talent is all there. I really love Kyler Murray, but it's not going to look too good when we talk about that offensive line. And I know that I'm going to have some pushback on that, but my faith in that offensive line, not good. But essentially, Kyler Murray, if the offensive line were improved more, I think I'd be much happier. And I'd probably have him being, I'd have you guys higher on my overall rankings, because right now this is, if you haven't caught on to it, basically going from worst to best team in the NFL. But I really do love Kyler Murray. He is him, so to speak, but there's a lot of other things that have to go right in order for it to work. James Conner, reliable back. I'm a Steelers fan, so I got to see that constantly. Trey Benson, that's a really nice 1-2 punch there. Big fan of that. And then we could look at the tight end group. You got McBride and Ryman primarily. And again, I have my issues with Ryman being a number 2 tight end. I like him as a number 3 tight end. But again, not in the 3rd round. And that's not where you take tight end 3s. But regardless, I digress. Trey McBride's a stud. He was someone who I had a lot of faith in. Like, I was a big fan of that pick because Zach Ertz wasn't going to be the guy for the future. Trey McBride, I had a lot of faith in. And, he's He's ended up really showing out, and I really love that about him. I love when I see a Colorado State player show out. I don't know why. Maybe I'm a closeted fan of Colorado State too, because I just love him. I mean, even last year, Mo Kamara, big fan. But looking at the other positions in the receiving core, you got Greg Dortch in the slot, the dude who ended up, I think you guys were down like 40 points or something, and he ended up like pretty much small manning another dude. Freaking hilarious. But cool to have on fantasy, but I don't really think he's moving the needle too much for me. At the same time, he is wide receiver 3. If Michael Wilson can end up staying healthy, he's a baller. Problem is, I don't trust him to fully stay healthy. And that's been kind of the story of his whole career. He had injury issues at Stanford, and then he's been a little bit more unreliable in the NFL as well. Of course, Marvin Harrison Jr., massive addition. But the big thing, like right there, that group, if you look at the skill position, it's probably an A- to A skill position group. Like, you have a really good squad. It's this offensive line that really hurts me. Paris Johnson's solid. I mean, for me, I love the fact that he's right now projected to go back to his native position at left tackle. He was at right tackle last year, had some struggles. Surprise, surprise, when you move a tackle away from where they're comfortable, they might actually struggle. But then you got, who is that? Evan Brown at left guard. To me, not someone who I want to be my starting left guard. Push back on that all you want. I don't think Evan Brown, to me, is going to move the needle. Same thing with Hajalti Froholt. Same thing with Will Hernandez. That interior of the offensive line is just one that I don't have a lot of faith when you end up going up against defensive interiors that are very stout. Almost like the Seahawks have that in your own division with Byron Murphy and Leonard Williams. I just don't trust, because you are going to be seeing that. You have Kobe Turner as well. At least you don't have Aaron Donald to deal with anymore, but you still got Kobe Turner on the Rams. And then on the Niners, the Niners aren't overloaded at defensive interior talent, but they've done a good job being able to retool. You're in a division that is really loaded in terms of defensive line talent, and that's what really sucks, because you're facing that 6 times in the year. That could be the difference between a win and a loss. And Jonah Williams doesn't move the needle for me either. He's a guard/tackle hybrid. He's a former first-round left tackle, but everybody knows he's a filler. He's a filler guy. He's just there to be consistent. And I was praying to God that you guys would be addressing offensive line a little bit more than what you did in the draft. I can see Isaiah Adams moving up to starter. I cannot see Christian Jones being able to do that, but it is what it is. But overall, again, this is a respectable offense. We are just talking about, in comparison to the other offenses, you have the weapons advantage in terms of skill position, but that offensive line, it concerns me. It really does. So I'm praying to God that's not the case, but you guys know me. I might overweight how good or how much offensive line matters, but we also have seen the offensive line matters. Looking at the defense, well, hold on. We'll go back to offense, because I ended up promising you guys that I'd end up having a range. So floor, I think it is going to be like that B-. If I'm going to be honest, like, I'm betting on the floor here because I don't trust the offensive line. If the interior of the offensive line holds, I think this is a solid B+ roster. So keep that in mind. I do see the potential there. But let's talk about the defense now. Defensive line, Bilal Nichols, was it Justin Jones? Like, guys, like that's not what we meant when we say improve the defensive interior. We did not say put mediocre filler guys as your starters when your starters were Garbo. That wasn't what we meant. We meant, hey, at pick 27, go after Johnny Newton. No disrespect to Darius Robinson, but I think that there's a little bit more of a return on investment from Jerzon Newton than there is for that, because of the fact that you have this. But it's not like they're ass. It's just, we're talking about, again, an NFL where the talent level has just increased across the board. There's not genuine holes on rosters the way that maybe it used to be 10 years ago. Like, even the guys who I say are absolute cheeks, like we're talking about Shelty Froholt, Will Hernandez, Evan Brown, like those guys would have been guys who it's like, okay, like we'll move on, not actually talk about them as legitimate holes, in my opinion. So, I mean, we've gotten to the point where mediocrity is the hole. Pause. But we end up having now Justin Jones and Bilal Nichols, who are mediocrity, and it doesn't fix the issue. You need to have solid talent there. Luckily, they got Darius Robinson listed as he's going to be a contributor on that defensive front. I really do hope that he gets more reps out at edge than anything, because, I mean, hell, they have Zaven Collins, who's a linebacker from Tulsa, who is playing some edge there. So I mean, hell, if you could do that with him, you might as well do the other way around with a defensive lineman, right? But Zaven Collins as well as B.J. Ojulari. B.J. Ojulari was a top 10 player for me last year. I have him as my MVP, technically above Budda Baker. Who gives a shit? It's there for fun. Like, it's not that deep, bro. But B.J. Ojulari is a super stud. I think that he's going to be an absolute all-star. When I checked in the middle of last year, he had the highest pass rush win rate at, I think, 24%. But I'm pretty sure that ended up changing with more and more reps. But B.J. Ojulari, someone who I do have a lot of faith in. Zaven Collins, not so much. Then you got Kaiser White and Chris Barnes as your inside linebackers. Again, not moving the needle for me. Not bad at all, right? Kaiser White, former safety. But I don't know what's up with these Eagles or former Eagles DCs. They just don't give a crap about linebackers. And every year, you kind of just wish they had a good linebacker. Almost like Zaven Collins, if he actually could train to just be an actual linebacker, would be really solid. But I digress. Again, doesn't really move the needle for me. Then you got Jalen Thompson and Budda Baker. I really do like that duo back there. They've been rock solid for quite a while, so I'm not going to complain about it. But let's talk about this corner core. You got Sean Murphy-Bunting, Garrett Williams, Max Melton. Got Elijah Jones in there as well. I'm forgetting who the hell is Starling Thomas is also listed on your roster. I kind of forgot about that one. And then, of course, I forgot to mention earlier, Dadrian Taylor Demerson. We already talked about him. Cam Thomas also listed on your roster as well as Xavier Thomas. But looking at the corner core, it's just relatively small. Garrett Williams, obviously a slot, sub 6 foot. Max Melton, sub 6 foot. Sean Murphy-Bunting, not going to be a guy who I'm overly enthused about, but again, not bad. But Elijah Jones, a stick bug, 6'2", 180, right? I do worry when you have guys like DK Metcalf in your division, Deebo Samuel in your division, Brandon Ayuk, maybe not in your division. There's just really good talent that you're facing against. And the corner core has been a focal point for issues on your defense. And it hasn't gotten that much better. I do love that you're making progress, though. Garrett Williams, Max Melton, both of them were my guys. But I do want a bigger, like a Will Johnson type. Of course, everybody would like a Will Johnson. He's an alien. But someone who is in that 6'2", 200-pound range that is able to start on a consistent basis. So I'm hoping that you guys find that. I'm hoping that these guys play as well as their talent suggests and are not going to be limited by their physicals. But I do love this team a lot. I mean, I'm just a sucker for Arizona. I'm a sucker for a lot of teams. I'm realizing that. You know, life is good when you end up actually liking more things. But I would say for the floor for this defense, if the corner core can't hold up in the defensive line camp, I'd probably go for a C. Just because, I mean, I think that's kind of important for you to be able to stop the run or the pass. But I think for a ceiling, like let's just say the mediocrity can hold up, the tomato can theory, and the corners play larger than life. I think this is a solid B. Like, I am going to be inching more towards the optimism point because I really do like your roster. But let's get right into the records prediction because we've been talking about this for a little too long. And jumping in with the records predictions, as you can see, we're off to a little bit of a poor start here, 0-3. But things can be subject to change. Do not fret. But again, this is going to be cumulative, which is why you should probably also check out the other videos to see my thought process on that. But we will be going over it again. Let's get right into this, though. Let's not waste too much time here. Starting off with week 1, you're facing Buffalo. I mean, regardless of how much I love you guys, and you could technically pull this upset off, I'm going to be going Buffalo. They're a Super Bowl competitor. I mean, to me, I think they're in my top 5. So, I mean, I'm pretty damn sure they're in my top 5. I should probably just check that fact right now. They're number 7. I lied. I lied to you. I lied. But they're still in my top 10. They are far superior at the moment. And even with a bummed out receiving core, again, you have a young corner core as well. Then we go to week number 2. The Rams are going to your house. Like, are you going to allow it to be Rams' house, or is it going to be your house? That's the big question of the week. And I really do like the Rams. Like, they're my number 3 team. Like, it's a really, really good roster. But you are at home. You're going to be fully healthy. I think this is one where you could potentially sneak out an upset. These are going to be tough games. They're going to be close games. And I really like the Rams, but I will be starting to pull some more upsets in here. The Lions then are going to be coming to your house as well, my number 5 team. So I'm doing a lot of spoilers in terms of how far away these videos are. But, I mean, I don't give a shit. But I think that we cannot give multiple upsets in a row. So we're going to be going and giving this one to the Lions. I do think that they have a solidified run game and they have a really, really good O-line. Same thing with the Rams. They should be winning that game, but I'm electing not to. Washington, I will call that an upset. They will have a lot of firepower. And they also have a mediocre defensive line. But again, I've already had my issues with your offensive line. I do have my concerns. And I think that there has to be some form of RNG here. And I will be giving that as an upset. But I do think the Niners are going to kick your ass when you go to their house. I mean, call it out as it is, but I really do have faith in the Niners this year. They're my number 2 team in the NFL. Then we have the Packers. You're going to Green Bay. That's a nasty climate. So I will be giving this one to the Packers as well. It's not a fun year. I'm going to be honest. You have a tough schedule. I mean, you're facing the Packers, the Bills. Like these are teams that are top 10. Like you're facing a lot of top 10 teams here. I do think the Chargers going to your house. This is where you can sneak an upset. The Chargers are a very, very good team. They're top 15 for me. But again, I think when you're at home, you'll be able to have some extra energy, and I think you'll be able to kick some ass. One of the teams where it's probably hardest to win at home or away when you're at their house is the Dolphins. It's going to be that in Denver. So I will be giving that win to the Dolphins. They're a really solid roster. That being said, they're not too far away from you, but that home field advantage in the middle of October, like Miami's different, man. Miami's really different. You could sneak a win there, but I just highly doubt it. Week number 9, you're facing the Bears. I've been really gung-ho on giving Bears a lot of victories. They're a team I have a lot of faith in, but I will give this game to you. I don't want to, but I will. I'm going to call it an upset. I do think the Bears are a super loaded roster that can make the playoffs. So keep it in mind. That actually might be a game I flip. Then you're facing the Jets off of a mini bye. They'll be playing pretty much a Thursday night game, and this is going to be a Sunday. I do think the Jets are really, really talented. Really talented. I think that, the only thing that keeps me questioning is Aaron Rodgers' health, right? And I try to be more optimistic in terms of people's health. I don't try to project injuries because that's not very fun. And also, like, who the hell am I to project injuries? Like, it's literally random at points. But I mean, I do think that you got to start giving some wins to teams that are better, and they're going to be more rested than you. You're going to be coming after a gruesome win versus the Bears. It's not going to be easy. So I'm going to be giving the Jets the win there. Then you face Seattle when they're at home. They're a good squad, man. They are, but you're going to be fully rested. I'm going to call upset right there. You then face the Vikings at home. Both are dome teams. So I do think that this is a pretty fair matchup, and I actually have Minnesota coming in a couple weeks. Not a couple weeks, in a couple videos. And I actually think that you guys go on a little bit of an away win streak here. I like Minnesota, but they do have some big question marks at quarterback. Not corner. I'm not being a dick because rest in peace, Kyrie Jackson. Obviously, rest his soul. But I'm not going to make any comments on that. Like, that's not, I meant quarterback. And I'm sure you guys heard that, but you never know. There's always that one person who mishears. Story of my life, if you guys know me personally. But week 14, you're facing the Seahawks again. Seattle is a good roster. I think I got to give them the win. If I'm not mistaken, you guys, I think, are notoriously better at beating Seahawks at home. And they're, I think, better statistically. Feel free to correct me on that. But I remember a video I made a couple years ago. Someone made that comment that you guys are actually better away. But I'm going to be giving you guys that. Then the Patriots, it's a game I would rather give to you, but they are fully rested coming off a bye. I'll be giving that to them. Then you face the Panthers, and the Panthers are a really good roster. They're at home as well. The Rams are going to be at home. I'm going to be giving them that victory. And then I'm going to be giving you guys the victory over the Niners because I think the Niners are going to be resting their starters. So keep that in mind. I mean, it's nothing that's crazy. So if we look at the record, it's probably not going to be pretty, is it? 6-11. Oh, that's not that bad at all. You are in arguably the toughest division in the NFL. So I'm not going to shame that too much. The Seattle Seahawks, I mean, the fact that you guys have the first win against them is kind of a big flex for you. But, I mean, you guys have a tough schedule. Looking at the floor, like, I do think that there was a couple games where I gave it to y'all. So I could say you could lose week 2. I think you could lose week 7. I think that's fair to say. You could lose week 9, but, I mean, I'm going to count one of those two. Like, I think that would be the difference. I would say 3. Because I'm going to count this as a half-point game. I'm going to count this as a half-point game. So I think your floor is 3 wins. That's not a great floor, but you have a tough ass schedule. Games that you could win though, ceiling wise, 16 and 17, both of those weeks you can easily win. You just can. I gave that the RNG shake. I do think you could technically beat the Jets at home. They're a really good roster, but I do think that the Jets have a little bit of a fail detector. I do think you can win week 4. Technically, you could win week 1 if their receiving core is that ass. So I think your ceiling is 11 wins. Not bad. 3 to 11 is a pretty big spread, but you guys have a tough ass schedule. And I gave you some wins versus some very good teams. I gave you some losses versus some pretty poor teams, but that's the NFL. I mean, upsets happen every single year, every single week. And 6 and 11 is respectable. It really is. Like, there's a lot worse records to have. So, really happy about that for you guys. I mean, it's something that's a little bit demoralizing, but when you do face these rosters that are just supreme in terms of their firepower, it's so tough. And you really are in a gruesome division with a poor offensive line. It's just not easy to just say you are going to be getting a consistent amount of wins. So I'm hoping for that to change. Again, your ceiling is 11 wins. Certainly possible. I'm leaning a little bit more towards the pessimistic side because of that offensive line. But that's going to be the video. Thank you so much for watching. I love y'all. See you on the far side. Peace.